Hello, John aka Chicken Fillets here, and it's time once again for another remembering episode. The series, well, I like to remember about a video game. Now, if this is your first time hearing one of these, how I like to do this is in a one-shot, one-take format. So if there's spoilers, if there's mistakes, well, you've been warned. I will also discuss how I got into said game, what my general thoughts were about the game, and then the future of said game as well. Now, before we get actually cracking on with the video, let's do the usual YouTube bump. So if you like JRPGs, if you like The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero, and if you like a wee Scottish guy talk about it, well, please consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's do the tale of the tape first for The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. Now this is the second arc in the Legend of Heroes Trails of series. Before this we had the Liberelle arc with the likes of Estelle and Joshua, and this was originally released back in 2010 on the PSP in Japan. Then it got later ported to PC from my understanding. Now this is the second arc, as I said, it's a part of a duology, so this is the first entry in that duology, and we've got a new cast of characters, a new location as well, and quite frankly, in my eyes, this is the best arc thus far that I have experienced in the Legend of Heroes Trails of series. So, later on this did get a port, an English release to the West on PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and it came to Steam with an updated English port from the masters known as Falcom. So, how did I get into this game? Well, first of all, let's know about my history with the Trails of series. So I started off with the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel as my first entry point. Now there's a lot of contention of how you should play the Trails of series, and to be quite frankly honest, just play it however you want. I mean, I know that there's some purists who will say you should really start from the beginning, blah 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 blah, but I can tell you from where I started, you can play pretty much wherever you want. There'll be references that you may not understand, but you know what, every time you go into a different entry, a different arc, you really start to go, you have those breakthrough moments. So when I was getting fully back into JRPGs, Trails of Cold Steel kept on popping up on JRPG lists about, Vita games you should be playing. So, absolutely adored those games. Once I got a Nintendo Switch, I got the likes of Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4. Absolutely love those titles. Now, I did actually try and get the PSP version of this now, of Trails from Zero. How I did this was I've got two PSPs in my household, and one of them is pirated. I can get ROMs onto it. So I got an English patch for it, but I never actually got around to properly playing it. But we then got the announcement that the Trails from Zero was getting a release, an English port, and I think it was in Geofront. Now, Geofront, from my remembering, they were a sort of fan translation group which worked on other Falcom games, and their translation, correct me if I'm wrong, but their translation was the basis of what they used for this port. So I picked this up on Nintendo Switch, and I tell you what, the hype for this game is well and truly deserved. So once I got that, let's talk about my thoughts about the game. So Trails from Zero, it's a brand new cast of characters, the likes of the SSS, the Special Support Section, it's a sort of a police group, and it's led by Lloyd Bannings, and it's made up of a cast of really great characters in this. What I found was really good with this dynamic with the cast is that it's a small cast of characters. Trails of series, especially when it goes from Cold Steel onwards, the cast becomes massive. especially to the latter end of Cold Steel into the likes of Reverie. It's like the Avengers of the Trail series. What was great about this is that it focused on 4 characters, and it was a relatable cast. And a lot of these sort of JRPGs, you know, they all have like dark secrets or like have superpowers which are, you know, suppressing, blah blah blah. With this, it was a down-to-earth cast of characters. It was essentially a detective, a politician's daughter, someone who, Randy for example, who was a police, was a part of either an army, like armed forces department, and he got shoved over because he was disgraced or something along those lines. And then you had Tio, who was basically Tio. Yeah, it's Tio. So I kind of thought I may have mispronounced it. If I'm wrong, please correct me. And she's sort of the whiz kid, and you find out more about her. But I really like this dynamic, a smaller cast. And it was a slow burn, this game, because you're getting the fundamentals down for the first part of the game, which is a bog standard thing with most JRPGs. But the place as well, Crossbell, having it realistically in a smaller confined space within Crossbell in its outer region was quite nice. I like the focus on just this independent, well, this place which is instead of like a giant world map as opposed to most JRPGs, it was nice and confined, and it was a nice touch being just a part of a police group who are trying to do good, you know, not like trying to defeat God or anything like most JRPGs. It was a police squad trying to solve mysteries, help the public, etc. And as the story progresses, I mean, this has got one of the closing chapters of this game. I am no joking, amps from 0 to 100 so fast. It is just an unbelievable trip. The ending, and it builds up slowly. That's what I'm saying. It's a slow burn with this game, but it keeps you entwined the whole time you're playing with it, because everything in this game is so well written. Like the characters, you really appreciate the likes of Lloyd Bannings, Ellie, they're dynamic. One thing I really like about Lloyd now, I just felt he was such a relatable character. He wasn't pushed right in your face. He wasn't made like, you could see weakness in him as well. He was just an ordinary detective, essentially. He's where a lot of JRPGs, you know, push like the stereotypical hero. This guy is just a normal person. It was really refreshing with that. So the actual story itself, as I said, it's a slow burn, and I've gone completely a blank by it just now. I cannot believe that I've just gone blank about it. But what I do remember of the story, right, is just seeing the development of these characters become a close-knit group, and you see like the inner struggles that they do have within this dynamic, they overcome them, and it's this overcoming and becoming a tight-knit group. And then the likes of solving the mystery, etc. You know, it's really, really well done. Now, let's talk about the combat, because the combat is turn-based, and it follows up from the likes of the Sky Trilogy. And with Falcom have got their, well, I can't really say for Daybreak, because I've not played Daybreak yet. Sorry. There's so many JRPGs, I've not got around to Daybreak yet. But they really have the turn-based combat nailed down, and I like this sort of aspect where you're looking down and you move your characters about with the S-crafts, and as well being able to see whose turn it is next. I love that sort of turn-based combat. You see likes of Final Fantasy X use it. It's really good, really, really good. Music, as always, is fantastic. Falcom JDK team really know how to make a soundtrack. This has got some of the most memorable music in it, especially the battle theme, where at the end of it, there's like a fully orchestrated version of it. You know, it's totally amped. It's just so much fun. And like, there's like side quests within this as well. Now, with the side quests, I wanted to do it because it really builds up the world. You really start to understand the citizens of Crossbell, etc. It's just so damn good. And the fact, independence. No, wait, that's the next game. Ignore me. We'll do that in the next episode. Oh man, see, I told you there was going to be mistakes somewhere. So, my personal view of this game, it's my favourite out of the Trails of series. If you asked me before, I mean, the Cold Steel used to be my favourite, but once I played the duology, this was honestly the best cast of characters that I've played in any of those games. I just think this adventure is so good. What is my favourite out of the two, the duology? They're both really good. There's different pacing between the two games, which work in their favours. Because if you've played the duology, you know that Trails from Zero is a slow burn, whereas Trails to Azure is like just balls to the wall, bang, 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 bang. There's always stuff happening because you know the story, or you know the cast well. They don't hand hold you at the beginning of the game. They just pretty much throw you in the thick of it story wise with Azure. But for you to appreciate Azure, you need to play the likes of Trails from Zero. It just makes complete and utter sense. It's just amazing. Now let's talk about the future of Trails. Actually, no, before we do that, I've just remembered something. So my exposure to Trails of from Zero, like the first time I played any sort of thing related to that was in Trails of Cold Steel 2. Now, if you've played Trails of Cold Steel 2, you all know like the epilogue where you suddenly play as Lloyd and you play as Risha in the underground of Crossbell. And that was like my first experience of those characters. And well, at the time, I was like, who are these characters? Like, I didn't really have a clue about the Trails of series. I knew of Cold Steel. I didn't really look, at that point in time, I didn't really look back into the series. But I'm no joking, like, I had no clue who these characters were, but I really liked both of them. I thought, this is cool. And then you start fighting Green Schwarzer and Altina. That was just unbelievable. That was my first exposure. Then when you go from like Cold Steel 3 and 4, where you go back to Crossbell, and that was my first time experiencing Crossbell, was in those games. So linking it up was really cool. And when you see in Cold Steel, like Lloyd appearing a few times, especially in like Cold Steel 4, where he becomes a bit more prominent, it was just like, wow, I really want to go back and play these games. What I nearly missed out on? The graphics, right? So this used to be a PSP PC game using the Falcon PC engine. So one thing I think people will get put off by when they look at this game is the graphics, especially if they're into like your modern JRPGs. It didn't put me off because I knew what I was getting into. I grew up with the likes of Final Fantasy VII, so I'm happy with playing games which haven't got the best looking graphics. The sprite works really good with this. So yeah, if you've always been on the fence of playing it because of the graphics, don't. I would just don't. It's really, really cool. Okay, let's go on about the future of Trails from Zero. Now, the Trails of series is the end is near. We've got Daybreak 2, and then I think there's End of Zemuria, I want to call it, which is apparently meant to be like the final game. I might be wrong, but it's coming close to. The Falcon want to bring the Trails of series to an end. But in my eyes, and I did a previous video about this, I want to see the Crossbell arc get a remake. These games deserve to get a remake. The likes of, if the Sky Trilogy does well with that remake, I mean, you saw how amazing that looked. I honestly think Crossbell arc, the Trails from Zero and Azure deserve this treatment as well. absolutely 100%. The assets are there because they were used in likes of Cold Steel, Trails from Reverie. It's there. And I think people would absolutely love a remake of this game. Might just be me, but I think people would. But let me know what your thoughts are on Trails from Zero if you want a remake. So, without further ado, I think we've got another episode in the books. So we'll end it with that. So if you enjoy what you're hearing and seeing on this channel, please help me grow it by liking, sharing and subscribing. And if you want to be kept up to date with everything Chicken Fillets, you know what to do. Hit that notification bell. This has been John, aka Chicken Fillets, and until next time, tatty bye.